Okay, so as you can hear, we've gone live. So particular welcome to all of you who have turned up here today. I hope we're all reasonably spaced out and feeling comfortable with the environment. We've tried to ensure that that's the case, but we've also tried to make sure that it's possible for those who couldn't come here today and didn't want to come here today to be able to join us and hear what's being said. There's been major disruption in the world over the last couple of years, as we all know, with the world economy struggling through the pandemic on that. And there are noises in the UK now about likely inflation coming through, possible interest rates rises by the end of this year. But the IMF actually says, yeah, but when you've got that happening, it's usually because there's a strong economy and taxes may actually rise. And that's us looking at things in the UK. And forecasting accurately is always difficult, but never more so than now. And under those circumstances, I think the role of a finance minister is always difficult, but probably never more so than now. And we are particularly grateful for Dr. White coming to see us today. The role of finance minister is always busy. We're living at a time when things are particularly busy, and we're really grateful to you, Dr. White, as Minister of Finance for the Arab Republic of Egypt, for being able to come with us, come and be with us today. You're going to cover, I understand, fiscal policy response over this last period, post-pandemic and through the pandemic, and then also from that review, moving on to the future outlook as well. And we've got a number of questions which have been coming in in advance of this over time. You know, there's questions about the impact of Fed tapering, and you know, how is this going to affect Egypt? You know, is the impact on the Lebanese banking situation going to impact Egypt? You know, and there's another one which is opportunities and practical considerations for companies looking at Egypt. I think that last one is one which should be aimed at us at the Chamber, because we're here to help companies in what they're doing. But I think a lot of the earlier ones, to those of you here and listening at home, I think you're going to get a lot of your answers through the Minister's presentation this morning. So before I hand over to you, Minister, we're also thrilled this morning to have Sir Geoffrey Donaldson with us. Sir Geoffrey is the Prime Minister's trade envoy to both Egypt and now the Cameroon. And we'll ignore the Cameroon because this is an Egypt day. But in addition to that, Geoffrey is the leader of the DUP, the largest party in Northern Ireland, and he has taken that role on within the last few months, and it's extremely busy. I don't think there is a day that goes past without me hearing you on the media. So, Geoffrey, we're really grateful to you for finding some time to be able to come and talk to us. So if I may, I'll hand over to you, and I think you have to leave us after your introductory remarks, and then we'll hand over to the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian, and Your Excellency, Minister White, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Egypt, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you, first of all, for those of you who have come along this morning to join us for this special event hosted by the Egyptian-British Chamber of Commerce. It's good to be in a face-to-face meeting again. I guess we've done a lot of this over the last year and a half or more, remotely, virtually. But the first thing I want to do this morning, Minister, is pay a tribute to the Egyptian-British Chamber of Commerce. I know that you're going to talk about the impact of COVID on the Egyptian economy and on life in Egypt, but I have to say, as trade envoy to Egypt, that the EBCC throughout the pandemic has kept going, maintained the interest in Egypt, held online webinars, information events, and that's been fantastic, because I was concerned that we would have a big gap. We'd worked hard in the years leading up to the start of the pandemic to heighten interest in Egypt as a place to do trade, to do business, to invest. And I was worried that we'd see a falling away, but thanks to the EBCC, that hasn't happened. And these events have been really, really important in bridging the gap. So thank you, Iman, to you and your team, to Ian and the board as well for the leadership you've provided during that period. And I just want to place that on the record. As Ian has said, I've taken on some new roles recently, but I do want to say very clearly as Trade Envoy to Egypt, Egypt continues and will forever have a very special place in my heart. And I will continue in my role as Trade Envoy for the foreseeable future, hopefully, Ian, because I'm really passionate about building our trading connections with Egypt. I see huge potential. And yet it's really important that we find ways of communicating that potential to businesses across the UK. And that's what EBCC, through these webinars, through this event this morning, are seeking to do. So, Minister, it's a delight to have you with us. You are a very busy man. The Minister of Finance in any government is one of the busiest people. And yet you've taken time out to be with us, to take time to talk about the macroeconomics of Egypt, to update us on where Egypt is now as you emerge from the COVID pandemic, to also look at issues very topical at the moment, such as energy and climate change, and what Egypt is doing on that. Our thanks to the Ambassador as well for making this possible. I know that you and your team have continued to work throughout the pandemic as well to promote Egypt and relations between Egypt and the UK, not just in trading terms, but clearly for us, trade is really important. And I don't think the opportunities in Egypt have diminished. And in fact, with the reform agenda that has been taken forward under the direction of President Sisi, we've seen, I think, a major improvement in recent years in the investment climate in Egypt, and as a result in the opportunities as well. That reform agenda has been driven forward. As I talk to UK companies that are already in Egypt, and we've got a strategic group that meets regularly, some of the larger investors from the UK that are in Egypt, I hear very positive things about the impact, the positive impact of the reform agenda and how it's making it easier to do business in Egypt and with Egypt. And we're going to hear more from the Minister on that and where the economy is at the moment. Obviously, globally, economies have been impacted by COVID, by the lockdowns, by the restrictions that have been in place that have made it more difficult for businesses to operate. So we're going to hear from the Minister how Egypt has adapted to that, but also to look at the prospects for Egypt in terms of tackling climate change and the opportunities in sectors such as energy. And I know from speaking with Iman and her team at the Egyptian British Chamber of Commerce, we're already planning the next trade mission to Egypt. And I think, Your Excellency, one of the focuses of that trade mission will be in the energy sector, because we recognise the opportunities that are there. But of course, there are many other opportunities: healthcare, education, infrastructure, the massive investment in infrastructure that's taking place in Egypt. I regret, Minister, that I can't be here for your presentation, but I will ensure that Iman passes it on to me, because I know it's being recorded, so that I can watch and listen carefully to what you have to say, because it helps to inform me in my work as Trade Envoy on where the economic situation is at the moment. But unfortunately, I've pressing business today in Parliament, and I've got to leave directly to attend meetings in the House of Commons. But thank you, Your Excellency, for taking the time to be with us this morning. Thank you for the work that you're doing in leading the reform agenda, in driving forward the fiscal policies that will make Egypt even more attractive for UK businesses, both in terms of trade with Egypt, but also the potential for investment. And of course, that works both ways. And we hope to see more Egyptian companies looking at the UK as well for the opportunities for partnerships, for investment, and so on. So without further ado, I'm going to hand back to Ian, and I'm going to, at this point, depart with your forgiveness, Minister. But I wish you well on your visit to the UK, and I look forward to seeing you soon in Cairo. Thank you, everyone.
So Geoffrey, thank you very much indeed for being here, and thank you for those kind words. And I think, as everyone knows, I mean, although we as the Chamber are trying to do a lot of things, we can't do things without our friends and supporters. So, you know, today's event, I just want to give full credit to the National Bank of Egypt for their support in helping us be able to put this event on today. So thank you to NBE here in London. Thank you, Geoffrey.
Thank you.
And I think it's time for us to hand over to you, Dr. Mait, to answer. Now, questions and answers can come. You put questions in on the Q&A section if you're sitting at home. We'll take questions at the end from the room. But I suggest you wait with some of the questions until the end, because I think Dr. Mait is actually going to answer a lot of those questions as you go through your presentation. So,
thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and I would like first to start by thanking the British Chamber of Commerce and for their invitation, and particularly Ian for the invitation. And I would like also to thank Sir Geoffrey, who tried to be here. Also, he is very busy today, and special thank to Your Excellency Ambassador for the effort to make it possible to be with you today. And let me start my presentation, and after that I will answer the questions which I didn't answer through my presentation. So let me start by looking at what does Egypt have been through the COVID-19 and after the COVID-19. Let me say that for the COVID-19, we try to be balanced in a way to deal with the COVID-19 implications, at the same time to ensure that the economy will be moving in a very disciplined way. So we can ensure that we saved people's life, and we dealt with the implication of the COVID-19 through adopted target actions. We addressed most vulnerable sectors and households. We tried to be transparent with what's going on and to communicate it very well with the people. We adopted a balanced approach to support the economy and avoid any creating physical and debt imbalances, which we'll see now how we did that. And all our measures were temporary measures, which can we exit and readjust as needed once the COVID-19 is over. So policies to maintain macroeconomic stability through sustainable and ensure that we maintain sustainable fiscal and debt position. We mobilized additional revenues to deal with COVID, at the same time ensuring that our economy is progressing. We continued our reform with all aspects of our economy. For the Ministry of Finance, we're concentrating more on the tax system and ensuring that the reform is going on. Custom authorities under huge also reform. We're still investing hugely with the infrastructure. We also spend 2% of our GDP on supporting people and sectors who were negatively impacted by the COVID-19. At the same time, we were under pressure with regard to the hard currencies as a result of COVID-19. The investors were panicking and trying to, with uncertainty, they try to, leave and go back to their homes with their money. So we were under pressure at this time. I remember that in 4 or 5 weeks, around $20 billion left Egypt. We dealt with it in a very smooth way, but at the same time we were affected. So we had to ensure that we get a replacement, particularly that at this time, no tourists at all. Trade was in a very it was reduced heavily. At the same time, even our income from Egyptians working abroad, all of these sources of hard currencies were negatively impacted. So with IMF, we were able to get in 3 weeks, $2.8 billion. At the same time, we engaged with them in a 1-year program standby arrangement for $5.2 billion. And we reached the international market for another $5 billion. So we were able to compensate all of that and to ensure that we move smoothly over the bill. For the 2% of GDP stimulus package to address the negative impact of COVID-19 with sectors like health in particular, and also other like industry. We supported industry by reducing the prices of natural gas and electricity. We also supported our exporters by giving them liquidity. We made like 30 billion Egyptian pounds in just less than 15 months liquidity for our exporters to support them, and also contractors and many also vulnerable sectors like casual workers. We supported all of them with the tourism sector, which was one of the most negatively impacted sector, aviation, civil aviation. All these sectors, we had to interfere and support them. Yesterday, we asked the parliament to allow the Minister of Finance to give a 5 billion Egyptian pound loan to Egypt Air in order to support them until they recover from the negative impact. At the same time, we issued many initiatives to ensure that we are dealing with impact. Like the one which is most important now in the country, which is called Decent Life, Haya Karima, which we are allocating $50 billion in the coming 3 to 4 years, one of the biggest in Egypt history. This project is mainly targeting improving the living standard for more than 60 million Egyptians living in rural area, in villages, particularly in the poor areas. So we're going to spend 700 to 800 billion Egyptian pound, which is about $50 billion in the coming 3 to 4 years. This will mean that develop infrastructure services in all these villages, raise quality of human development by investing in health, education, networks, water sanitation, wastewater, and roads for all these. Most of them are poor villages, so we wanted to improve their life. And this is the reason the president called it Decent Life or Haya Karima for our people. We have already started since beginning of this year, and this is one of the biggest projects in Egypt history. Okay, if we look at our macroeconomics, immediately before COVID-19, we were targeting 5.8%, but we achieved 5.6%. In the year of COVID-19, we achieved 3.6%. And in the year finished last June, we achieved 3.3%. Yes, they are lower, but Egypt was one of the very few countries around the world which was sustainably keeping the positive growth, because most of the countries around the world, at least in the first year, were negatively growing with the negative impact of COVID-19. But Egypt, no. Egypt was one of the few countries, yes, lower, but still positive and significantly reasonable, 3.6%, and last year 3.7%. But last quarter, we achieved 7.7%. Last quarter, I mean, was April to June. We achieved 7.7%. This year, we are targeting 5.4 to 5.6. And this is an important point about our ability to sustain growth, our ability to continue growing. Let me say, our ambition is not to grow below 6%. Our ambition is to grow above 6%, is to always between minimum 6 to 7% every year. We still have a lot of opportunities, a lot of sectors which can give us our ambitions of sustainable growth to a level between 6 to 7% every year. This contributed to the decline of unemployment because with all huge projects around the country, and most of them are mega projects, we have succeeded to build 15 new cities. The new administrative, which we're going to move in 3 months' time, city, which will be the new capital for Egypt, and Galala City, Al Alamein City, New Ismailia, New Mania. So a lot of cities, all of them either have been built or in the process of building. And as I said, these mega projects created millions of jobs, which helped Egypt to reduce the unemployment from 13.3 to 7.9 immediately before COVID-19, jumped up to 9.6% in the first year of COVID, but now is around 7.3%. If we look at the inflation, which was at the highest level around the economic reform period in 2016-2017, which was, let me say, food inflation was above 40%. Core inflation was around 26%. Headline inflation was around 23-24%. But immediately before COVID-19, our inflation was around 4% or so. But unfortunately, with what is going on around the world, and we are one of the importers for oil, for wheat, and many others, our inflation jumped to 6.6, according to the recent figures last week. We hope it will be a temporary. Let me say also for total domestic credit to private sector, which was growing at 23.3% up to February 2021, is now around 19%. The two main sectors which have got FDI's inflow sectors were manufacturing sector and IT and the communications, which were growing very fast and attracting more FDIs. Unfortunately, the others did not see that FDI. But I believe with IPO, we have started the program, a new program for IPO. We just finished one few days ago for one of the biggest IT company owned by the state, which is called eFinance. We offer 26% on the stock market to the primary issuance offer. And I think it attracted from foreigners. It was a private placement. It attracted 7 times what was offered. We offered around $252 million. It was covered 7 times. For public offer, which was around $100 million, it covered 65.5 times, which was something we were happy that this is the first company owned 100% by the state to offer 26% both in private and public offering. With this good outcome, we hope that we next month we have another company, and every month we'll put other companies in different sectors. This one was IT. We have one bank is going to go to the market. We have insurance company, we have one petrochemic, and we have one in the housing sector. So we have a program, and 5 of companies are ready to go in the coming 5 to 6 months or 7 months. Overall deficit, we were very successful in bringing our deficit, even over the coronavirus period. It declined from 12.5% on 30th of June 2016. Last year, we finished 7.4%. And this year, we target 6.7%. without Corona, we should be below 5% this year, below 5% overall. And by the way, we were on 30th of June 2013, we were close to 16.5% overall deficit. Before before the year 2013-2014. So on 30th of June 2013, we were 16.5% overall deficit of the budget. So this year we are targeting 6.7, and as we'll see later, in the coming 2 years, we are targeting to be close to 5 or below 5. Primary balance of the budget, we used to have a primary deficit for 20-30 years. It was only in the year 2017, 2018, the first time since 20-30 years, Egypt to know a primary surplus. And even within Corona, we were achieving primary surplus. We finished in year 2018, 2019, 1.9. 2019, 2020, we were supposed to be 2, primary surplus, 2%, but we achieved 1.8. However, last year we achieved 1.45. This year we are targeting 1.5, next year 2%. The IMF regard Egypt as one of the most efficient country in a comparison between what we have spent and what we have achieved over the 2 years of COVID-19. This is what it was published by the IMF, that Egypt was very efficient in what they have spent as a stimulus package over the 2 years of COVID-19 and what they have achieved in return as a GDP growth and other objectives. And this was published by the IMF. Egypt was the only country in Africa and the Middle East which was able to keep its rating and outlook with all the 3 rating agencies, although we are subject to review every year from each one of them. So in 1 year, we are under 6 reviews. So over the COVID-19, we were under 12 reviews. And on all of these, we were able to keep our rating and our outlook from from all the 3 rating agencies. We got a positive testimony by IMF, World Bank, European Bank, and others that we were able to be addressing the COVID-19 negative impact and to be very efficient to deal with it. If we look at the new financial year, the current year, 21-22, we were ensuring 3 objectives: ensure physical and debt sustainability, improve effectiveness and efficiency of revenue and expenditure, and support high job-rich economic growth. As I said, primary surplus and deficit. Budget deficit. Primary surplus this year 1.5, and the coming 2 years we target 2% primary surplus. Overall deficit, we are targeting that this year 6.7, the next 2 years to be around 5%, and after that we keep the below 5% overall deficit, and by that we have achieved our goal. From the beginning, we said we need to keep 2% primary surplus every year and to be below 5% budget deficit. And this must be something like we cannot deviate from that. We also decided to keep our annual revenue growth to be around 20% and our annual expenditure to be around 10%. So we can always keep an improvement in our annual growth over annual growth of revenue over growth of expenditure. And how we can do that? We have a huge space in our tax collection because Egypt is one of the countries around the world which have a high informal sector. It's around 55% of our economy is informal. Plus or minus 5, and this is for sure. How that? I always keep recording every week from, I'm going to the street asking our shops and our companies, are you registering with the tax authorities? The final answer after reviewing 30,000 of them, 45% no. We don't have registration with tax authorities and we don't pay taxes. It's only 45% after review over 3 years. I did this over 3 years. So it's confirmed. I did something. I'm going to automation. I'm introducing e-invoice, which this allow me to see how companies deal with each other instantaneously. I register already now more than 3,500 companies. I see their trades instantaneously, how, to whom they buy from or to sell to, and how much and everything. I receive currently 500,000 invoice every 24 hours. By March, I will receive 1 million electronic invoice every 24 hours. This allows me to know everything about what is going on. Another project, which is now we are doing, but it will be starting implementation from 1st of April, is called e-receipt, because e-invoice is B2B business to business, e-receipt is business to customers. This will be, inshallah, from 1st of April, implementing that, which means that what we sell to our client, our customers on the street will be seen immediately, instantaneously by the tax authorities. This will allow the informal sector to be seen. Also, the new law, which has been issued and its executive regulation has been issued for small, medium, and micro enterprises. This also gives huge incentives for them to our expectation and our agreement with IMF is to try to increase our tax collection by 0.5% of GDP every year. So our tax revenue is growing, and this year we are targeting 1 billion, roughly 1 billion tax collected, and this will take us from the current situation, which is below 13% of GDP, to around 13.7%. If we look at 2 points which concern our investors, is the level of debt to GDP and the level of debt service to GDP. Let me talk now about debt service. Debt service, how much we pay from our budget as interest payment for our debt. I give you, for example, forget about the absolute value, it was close to 40% of our expenditure. If you look at year 2019, 2020, interest payment as a percent of the budget is 40%. We finished last year 36%. This year we target 31.5%. So we bought a strategy that interest payment as a percentage of our budget will be down from the level which was 40% to 36%, which finished last year, 31% this year. Next year will be going below 30%, and our ultimate goal is to be around 25%. We are on track. As a percentage of GDP, it was 10%, which was one of the highest in the world. Last year, we finished 8.8%. This year, we target 8.1%. And we are taking this below, inshallah, 7% as interest payment of GDP. We try to be restructuring our debt, because our debt is very expensive. It used to be around 18% for the local and 7% for the external. Now, the local is around 14%, and I believe this year will be also below that, but our external debt is still 6.7. This is the average interest payment. Also, we are trying to change the structure of our debt because it used to be the majority treasury bills. It was around, let me say, 70–80% of our debt treasury bills, which was hugely a problem because of liquidity. Now it's below 40% and 60% is bonds. And this helped us with JP Morgan to convince them to be included in their index. They have announced last week that Egypt will be included from the end of January, and the index with a significant weight in the index, 1.85%. Ukraine was with us, but it was given a weight of 0.2%, and also it will be from end of March. So we think we convinced JP Morgan to include Egypt. Egypt will be only country with South Africa and the whole of Africa and the Middle East to be included in JP Morgan index for sovereign bond. And also we were included, I think, in the emerging market of green bonds and all of that, because of Egypt was the only country in Africa and Middle East to issue green bonds last year with 750 million. If we look at also average maturity was 1.3 years for our debt. Now it's 3.3, and we are targeting this year to be 3.7 years, which is significant improvement. And this also was one of the factors convinced the JP Morgan that we are moving in the right direction. Also, we are in talk with Euroclear. We are talking with Euroclear in order to be included. I think it was the only remaining issue is the tax treatment. Once we sort out this, I believe by March or so, we can have our domestic securities to be Euroclearable, which also will be a good step. For even financing needs, we used to have something around 55% of GDP, annual financing need. Look at what we have now in the current year, 34% of GDP, our financing need. It's a significant decline. And also in the coming 2 years, we will be below 30% as a financing need percentage of GDP. I need to move very quickly. We are investing hugely in our infrastructure. We have improved significantly with the network of road, tunnels, bridges, social housing. Egypt was one of the countries with huge shortage in electricity. We now export electricity to other countries in the region. We were one of the countries with also shortage in natural gas. We now export natural gas. And also with our figures for exports, non-oil exports, we are improving. Latest figures, it gives an improvement of around 20–25% of our export. Tourism sector started to recover, which also give us confidence. If we look at even the structure of our expenditure, you will see a significant improvement. We used to put huge money for subsidies, is no longer subsidies. Most subsidies going to pension funds, going to health, education, but no more for oil, electricity, for all of that is something now. And if you look at subsidies, grants, it's the change now move towards pension funds. We are putting huge amount allocated to pension funds and also to Takaful and Karama, which solidarity and dignity program, which is cash transfer for people. So if you look at this, is very important to see how we were in spending money in financial year 2013–2014. You will see that most of the subsidies were going to petroleum products, 139 100 billion Egyptian pound, 126.2 going to petroleum, and electricity and other 13.3%. Education was and health 115. This was the case in 2013–2014. Now the situation has changed significantly. Look at how much we subsidize in financial year 2021. It's only 18 billion Egyptian pound for petroleum products and nothing for electricity, and the majority 252 for health and education. It's significant improvement, and I think this is what we are targeting. Invest more. Infrastructure, human development. And Egypt is one of the few countries in the region to introduce and start implementing universal health insurance. We covered one governorate. This year, we started the second, and we will go for the third, universal health coverage. We are supporting economic activity, especially manufacturing and exports, maintaining fiscal discipline and sustainability of government debt, and also promoting social protection and improving standard of living citizen, focusing on human capital development, especially health and education. I will skip this for the initiatives we are spending to go very quickly to debt. Some people were worrying about what we are expecting with, again, deficit and primary balance and all of that. We explained about deficit and primary balance. But let us look at, I'm just showing you how we are in a good position compared to the previous one, compared to countries around us in the region or similar to us, that with primary balance, we are the only country who are achieving primary balance the financial year just finished of 1.45. The others are having a primary deficit. Yes, 7.4 budget deficit is not good as we are aiming, but we're still in the middle of the table, not very extreme. Even compared to group of countries, I think Egypt is positioned in with regard to primary balance, we are the best. With regard to budget deficit, we are in the middle somewhere. Interest payment, this is a problem. As I said, we finished last year 8.8%. We are the highest as debt service. Even if you compare the level of our debt with the level of debt service, we are not in a good position. And this, we are trying to improve it, and we are working on that. As I said, last year we finished 8.8%. It was 10% the year before. This year we are targeting 8.1% interest payment to GDP. So we are progressing even with debt as a percentage of GDP. Let me say, before I finish, if I compare debt to GDP for Egypt before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, before COVID-19 we were 90.2%. After COVID-19, or let me say last June, because our financial year finished end of June and the new one started 1st of July, we finished 91.2. So we have increased 1%. We have increased 1%. Compared to many other countries around the world, we think we are in control, because with pressure, I lost 400 billion Egyptian pounds over the 2 years of COVID-19. I did not collect them. I spent more to support the economy and the people who were vulnerable to COVID-19. And with all of that, with not achieving the GDP growth we were targeting because it reduced, I think we were in a good position to say it's only 1% increase in our debt to GDP before COVID-19 and now. Yes, there are some other indicators which might not of that good. We need to improve it. Our external debt as a percentage of GDP is still in the region of we are not in a bad position, but we need to improve some other indicators like our foreign debt to export or to the debt service for external debt to export. There are some indicators we need to improve them, but we have to give excuse for ourselves because over the 2 years, we lost some of main sources of hard currencies like tourism sector, like export non-oil export were reduced. So I believe that with coming period, we have a strategy to improve the situation. Let me say key challenges, which will be the last global uncertainty. We have a problem with environment of high inflation, high interest rate. Financing cost has increased. I compared two periods. 3 weeks ago, I was in the international market. I issued $3 billion. And in February, I issued $3.75 billion. 2% increase, 200 basis point increase on average. So this is one. High inflation, oil products, wheat, other imports, which we are significantly importing, very much higher than before. And we have to pay for all that. So again, uncertainty is surrounding us, and we have to address all of that. At the same time, keeping discipline, keeping the level of debt to GDP. I think we are trying very hard to put everything under control until we pass this 3 to 6 months, which we believe it will be hard, not for Egypt, but for others. I don't want to continue taking more of your time, but we have plans. We are moving according to plans. We are planning to bring the GDP to more than 6% next year. We are planning to have our deficit to around 5% budget deficit in the coming 2 years, and keeping primary surplus of 2%. We are planning to bring our debt to GDP to around 85% in the coming 2 to 3 years. We are planning also to ensure sustainability for our debt service and GDP growth. We believe Egypt has huge opportunities. We believe also Egypt, with more stable countries around us like Libya, will open markets for our companies, our products, and our labor. I believe also British companies have opportunities. They can see Egypt is improving in many sectors and many directions, and have a lot of opportunities on all: education, health, renewables, oil, and all of that. Egypt represents a good opportunities, particularly that we open our economy to all our neighbors and to Africa. So this will ensure that we continue sustaining our growth and creating more jobs and improving the living standard of our people. I stop here and receive. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. For those of you who are watching, first of all, the slides will be available online to pick up on that. I'd actually say I had a brief word with the minister before he started, because I'd had the chance to see what the pack looked like, and I said, no, you can't possibly get through that presentation in that time, and you did. So I take my hat off to you, sir. I really do. If I look, one of the things I think matters to you is getting more foreign companies coming into Egypt, either to build capacity or capability. And here from the UK, I mean, we've got some great examples where, whether it's HSBC, who have built an enormous consumer business all over the country, bringing in capability. Vodafone, that many of you know, I know extremely well, again, giving capability, and I'm hoping is still the largest corporate taxpayer in the country. So, I mean, one of the advantages of foreign investors is they're very good at paying tax because they're used to doing it everywhere. And even BP, where BP has been the big investor for many, many years, But you're now facing the dilemma with COP26 coming up and Egypt bidding to host COP27 of looking for investment in petrochemicals. But I'm merely emphasizing that the UK has had some very big companies who have been very successful in Egypt, I think both for themselves and also for Egypt. I think there's a couple of things in my observations with Egypt over a long period of time. You've managed to keep your GDP growth going through the pandemic, which is unusual. But actually, if you go back to the financial crisis that we had way back around about 2008 or so, Egypt, again, was one of the very few countries that actually still delivered GDP growth all the way through that. And I think for smaller companies thinking of investing in Egypt, there are 2 or 3 things that I think you can extract from the minister's macro view that should give you confidence in that the GDP growth has been going all the time, which makes it good for companies to consider coming into Egypt. You've got the big workforce that is available for people, and a well-educated workforce. And your increase in spending in education, I think, is only going to improve that. So I think that is good news. And there's one small thing that you mentioned on the way past that I think may be misunderstood in the UK environment. And that is, you talked about the investment in villages and how this makes a big difference. I think for me, I was very surprised. I have a home in a village in the UK. We have 150 houses and 450 people. If there were 100,000 people in a settlement, would that still be a village in Egypt? Or by 100,000, are we into a town? I think the average village is going to be about 25,000 people. Is it something, would it be?
We don't think, we don't look at the size, we look at the geographical area. We take a geographical area and we say, all this area is under the initiative. So we improve whether it is a very small or a big city, but we decided this whole area by all its districts or villages or cities or whatsoever, and all these people will be under new construction for all the services, particularly health, education, government services, water sanitation, because many of our villages are not having water sanitation. So, sorry, wastewater, I mean wastewater, I mean.
Right.
So this will be a project to ensure that by the time we finish, all the geographical areas will have wastewater.
Which I think will be fun. I was trying to get the context for a UK company that when we're talking about doing work in a village, this could be big. This is really a big project across the country.
Very ambitious. Yeah. We are expecting to be even more than what we are estimating. We are estimating now $50 billion in the 3 to 4 years. But we are thinking this might take even more than this amount we are estimating. But we know for sure this will ensure that investment in human capital, which one of the characteristics or one of the blames we receive, oh, you didn't go to the villages, we didn't go to the poor areas, we are concentrating on big cities, you are concentrating on middle class and high class. So we are saying, no, we are allocating more money and more work for those who are in poor areas, those who are in rural areas, and we believe this will contribute significantly to improvement in human capitals, which we regard this is human rights. It's a human rights to give them health. It's a human rights to give them education. It's a human right to give them clean water. It's a human rights to give them services and good housing and all of that. So we believe, and to create jobs, because eventually you are making all these projects internally within these areas. So you are creating jobs for them, which also will improve their life.
It's very exciting. And I think in the past, when Egypt's economy has gone up, there has been an accusation, it doesn't trickle down. It may be a trickle down, but this sounds like a very real decision by the government to make sure it's not going to trickle down. We're going to push it down and get it to
Exactly.
the people that need it.
And this also will contribute in what we believe in.
Yes.
Social justice and real distribution of wealth by the people of the country, by the poor and the wealthy, by the big cities and the small, by the different sectors of the populations, because by eventually, if you want to have social peace, you have to ensure that you are going to the most vulnerable segment of the population and tell them, we did not forget you.
Yeah.
We did not put you aside. No. Like what we do by creating new cities, like new administrative capitals, like what we are doing in Greater Cairo. We are reshaping Greater Cairo, but we are coming to you as well.
Yes.
We are investing in your health. We are investing in your education. We are investing in your clean water. We are investing in your social houses. We are investing in your network of roads. So we believe that when people don't feel that there is a justice in redistribution of wealth, they start to, feel like oh, this government, this political regime are not looking at us. They are looking to some. No, we don't want to go to this, because this will create another problems to the country. Yes. Because people feel they are treated unfair. Yes. So we believe this is a very important and very significant project. And as you've said, Egypt is investing hugely in health and education, yes. Hugely in health and education, yeah. Which we believe this is very important to change the situation. Yes, you are investing in infrastructure, roads, houses, new cities, desanitation, wastewaters, and all of that. But the most important are the people who will keep the country safe, who will feel satisfaction that the government is coming to them, investing in them. Will take time, will take money. And I've heard the managing director, Kristalina, we're talking about Egypt just 3 days ago. She was saying Egypt is investing hugely in infrastructure, in many aspects, which might contribute to the debt. However, what Egypt is doing is that they are investing in the future of the country and the future economy, which will ensure that this will bring a situation to be like an energy for this economy to continue growing, which I personally believe. Yes. So we have to do that. And I always go on TV and tell my people, look, yes, we might have a little bit higher debt to GDP, but we're creating jobs. Yes. But we are bringing universal health insurance to you. But we are trying to change our education to keep with international standards and changing all that. So, and also look at how much we are investing in agriculture, in manufacturing, social houses. The latest dangerous areas for houses where people were living in dangerous area just a few days ago finished. And we transferred now all the millions of Egyptians who were living in a very dangerous area and unhuman areas now finished, and all of them now are transferred in a decent houses. Some of them received the flat with all the furniture, appliances for free. That's for free. Yeah. Because we wanted to tell them it's just £300 per month for maintenance, but I think we have to invest in social aspects to ensure that people feel that yes, we are putting taxes, we are imposing on them a lot of pressure, but in return they get something. And now we are getting, people used to ask the government, where is our money? Where is our money? We don't see improvement in health, education, social houses, blah, 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 blah. Now people asking us, from where you get this money for these projects? This is a question we are asked now by all the Egyptians. Yes, we are trying our best to ensure that our economy is going on. Yes, we are sometimes borrowing, but we know for sure that our economy is growing, our revenue is growing, and we are managing. And to give confidence to our investors and others, we engaged with IMF for 2 programs, because IMF is like the external auditor is coming and make the audit and issue the report to the world about the situation of this, which I like.
Yes.
Because whatever I say to you, you might not believe me. But when an international financial institution like the IMF, when they say Egypt is doing well, you say, okay, so Egypt is doing well. So this is what.
Okay. It must be very satisfying for you to see the progress, and I think all of us here know your own personal involvement with the universal health insurance, which has been something, which I think must,
my baby.
Yeah,
I'm the chairman of the universal health insurance as well.
It's a wonderful move. So I'm going to throw this open to questions, both in the room and the thing. So if I may, I ask you to ask a question, if you could just tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and then give us the question, please. So the gentleman here in the front row. Thank you.
From?
Microphone coming. Thank you.
Morning. Matthew Ball from Philip Ross Solicitors. In this building about 2 years ago, you explained that the Egyptian government had invested a lot of time, effort, and of course money into large infrastructure schemes. You explained, however, though, it was time for the private sector to step up and start taking a role. Has that started happening?
Yes, it is not happening at the way we would like to happen. We found that the current situation is that the state is in control of 70% of our economy, and the private sector is 30%. And we decided to change this. In the coming 3 years, we're going to change it to 50-50. 50% government and 50% private sector. In order to do that, we have to offer the private sector some of what we own. For example, I said just yesterday we closed, or the day before, the offering for the biggest IT company owned by the state. And we bought 26% of this company to private sector. Goldman Sachs, the Norwegian pension fund, the many international investors came and invested in that, and they bought shares in this company. There are one petrochemical company will go in coming weeks, and one insurance company is in the preparation, one of the banks. So we have a plan in the coming 3 years to have 50-50 between. Number 2, we would like to put a model that the government doesn't own more than 50% in any of the state-owned enterprise, and the private sector own 50, 51, something like that. And even we would like to put some of the economic sectors, and we have to be very clear on that, for the private sector without interference from any sort of the government or the state and sectors. Yes, we know that we need to move quickly on this direction. And I assure you that we understand this very quickly, and we have to work on that seriously. I give you the seriousness we started with what we did in the last week. And you will see in the coming weeks more seriousness about that. The president talked about even the company which owns the new capital. This will be going to the private sector. We had meeting with the president yesterday, and he said, start very hard work in order to ensure this company will go publicly. And he said even the companies owned by the military start to prepare them to go to the stock exchange and to offer to the private sector part of these companies. And some of the state-owned enterprises, currently we prepare them. And we stopped last 2 years for one reason. I have to be very honest with you. COVID-19 and was the prices. I personally said, I'm not gonna go and put any of our companies at this level of prices because the situation in the world wasn't good. For me, I always think about one day, anyone can go to the court and say, oh, the Minister of Finance sold this company for nothing. So I said, let us have a situation. It's better to, I have to be honest with you. I had a meeting 48 hours ago with some of the big Gulf companies coming to buy a significant share in one of the petrochemical companies I own as a Ministry of Finance. And they said, I'm happy to offer you, start a negotiation. And because, look, we have target to attract more FDIs. And this is one of the sources to attract more FDIs. We were happy with e-finance because it attracted $252 million we'll put in our pocket next week. I'm happy with that because I said, and we are convinced, what is the point that we own everything? Let us, the private sector, share with us. They have the ability to create 1 million job, new 1 million job every year. We don't have the ability to create even 10,000 new job every year. So let the private sector come and, but we have to work hard to prove it seriously that we are moving in this direction. And as I said, we, in the last 1 or 2 weeks, proven that we are serious by putting one of the most profitable companies in Egypt. IT is one of the very growing data, put it for the private sector. And we're, look, when we put this to IPO, I found that many of our banks, financial institutions want to buy. I said, no, I want to attract FDIs. I want to bring people from outside Egypt. And this is the reason I did not allow the post office. They wanted 5%. I said, no, you will not get it. Some of the banks, I said, you will not get it. And the majority was $252 million for foreigners, and the local $100 million. So we were making a good mix. This will be seen in the coming weeks with other companies, state-owned companies, and in different sectors. So yes, we have to prove it, and we have the plan, and the plan is approved to have every year a specific amount of our economy going to the private sector to ensure that by 3 years from now, our economy is 50-50 between the.
Thank you, Minister. I think you're also highlighting for new investors coming into Egypt, the importance of understanding how ministers think, because you do have influence, control, even into who will invest in the IPO and things when you're part, because you have a goal for, and it's very clear that you've been operating with, you've had targets and you've been hitting them. You've had new targets, you've been hitting them. And as a ministry, clearly, and as a ministry, you've actually been moving the country forward with a very clear vision. And I think sometimes from the outside, it's not as well understood. So, but let me go to, there was a question over there, a lady with a hand up, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Yasmin Ghozzi. I'm from IHS Market, soon to be S&P. I have a question on the debt sustainability path. I know it was posed during the COVID, and now you're back on it for the medium term. What if the central bank starts to tighten its policy maybe next year in response to tightening of the Fed? Is this affecting your sustainability path, or how are you handling this with the central bank?
You are right, of course, because look, the central bank is very clear about its targets. Give you inflation target. It's 7% plus or minus 2. If they see the inflation is going beyond that. They have to start, address, and deal with it. If interest rates start to move up, this will affect me negatively because of the level of debt I'm serving. Currently, the average cost for local is 13.5% currently. If it will go up, means I have to pay more. It will affect everything. So I hope that the current inflation will not persist for long. For local, alhamdulillah, we don't have this inflation pressure, but unfortunately, the external inflation is putting us under pressure. Oil, wheat, other raw materials, freight is very expensive now. Freight. So the cost of cargoes and the cost of transportation for our goods is going very high. So eventually you will put this into the local market, and we have seen a movement in our prices. So the central bank is monitoring the inflation very closely. I hope that inflation will not go beyond their target. I know that if it goes, they will have to act. If they act, it will affect me negatively. It will mean that I have to adjust my targets. So if I'm targeting that next year to have interest payments to be percentage of expenditure or revenues or for GDP, I have to announce a new figures. I have to say, no, with this level, no, we have to. It will affect also my available revenue for different sectors, which I have to coordinate with the Minister of Planning about how much we will allocate more money, given that the cost of financing increased and will take more money. This will be a big adjustment for all our targets. I hope we will not go to this situation.
David, yeah, hang on, microphone, come.
Thank you. David Butter, Chatham House. Thank you, Minister. Just a couple of questions. One, on debt management, how will the start of repayments to the IMF on what's now, I believe, about $20 billion, but specifically the 12 billion EFF, how will that affect your debt management? And I'd be pleased if you could just outline the advantages which will come in the PPP law amendments, what specifically is going to be better for investors in the new legislation following the changes.
With IMF, we have already started making the payment back to IMF, and it is built in on our expected payments, and we are aware of it. I have to tell you that we have made, if I can remember the number correctly, we have paid around $16 billion in the previous months, so over the year, because of commitment on us. So we are paying all our commitment, including the IMF. We have already started to pay back the IMF the first program, which was for $12 billion. We are now in the payment process of that. Because normally we start after 3 years. We start the first payment after the 3 years of the first tranche. So the first tranche was November 2016. So we are in the process of paying the gradually what we have taken. So what I would like to say that we started to see improvement on some of our sources or resources for hard currencies. Tourism sector started to recover. Our exports is growing 20-25%. Non-oil exports. Remittance from Egyptian abroad is improving and improving at a good significant. With the IPOs, we are expecting to get more FDIs. And also we see appetite and more interest in manufacturing from Egypt. We have seen many investors coming to explore opportunities. We have made agreement with Russia to start manufacturing from the economic zone, Suez Canal. And we have also the Chinese, and we have also European companies they are talking with us about opportunities in the economic zone in Suez Canal. So I believe we have opportunities in more production from Egypt and exports. And if we add all of this, even revenue from Suez Canal is growing, alhamdulillah. So we see our sources. Yes, we are under pressure. We are under pressure. But we see also good interest from investors investing in our local treasuries, treasury bonds, bills and bonds. I remember June 2020, we were at $10 billion. It went up to now it's around $32 billion, which it's a good interest in our treasury bills and bonds. So we are balancing and we are managing such a situation. I was reviewing what happened with other countries around the world under the COVID-19 pressure. I found 6 countries around the world, some of them in Middle East, in Africa, and Latin America, they couldn't pay their obligations. They failed to pay their obligations, which I say, alhamdulillah, with the economic reform Egypt made in November 2016, which gave our economy a strong position. I see that we were right to make the economic reform. When I see, I think it was mentioned Lebanon. Lebanon did not go for the economic reform because of the people pressure on the government and all of that. But now the situation is not good because they didn't do the economic reform. Egypt did, and I believe it was rewarded for the economic reform that under the pressure of COVID-19 and now the uncertainty and the high inflation and all of that is managing very well in a very disciplined way. And I can assure you that we are moving in that, and we are confident, inshallah, we will continue observe the shocks. This is my 3rd time to be in a shocks. The first time I came to be Minister of Finance, June 2018. Over October, December 2018, if you remember, the crisis of emerging markets, I saw flow out of Egypt, more than $20 billion leaving because of the crisis in emerging markets. It was in Brazil, Argentina, Turkey, and all of that. So this put our economy under pressure. And the investors were worried because Egypt was just in the middle of the economic reform, because it was in November 2016. The crisis came around October, December 2018. The second one was COVID-19. I saw a very difficult time between March to June 2020, last year. Huge pressure to manage it. And we manage it. And this is the 3rd time because of what is going around the world. And the common factor was external because look, oil prices in my budget is $60 per barrel. Now we are talking about 85. I'm under pressure. Wheat, ton for wheat is around 220 for ton wheat. Now is more than 380. Yeah. So I'm under pressure of everything, but I'm managing, and I'm, inshallah, confident that we will come out. triple B, yes, it's in the parliament. We finished discussing in the floor most of the adjustments. It's just one article, which I will finish it with the parliament after I go back to Egypt the week after. So this triple B adjustment, I hope, will help us to allocate more investment for triple B. I'm very much interested to that. You know, that I said we have had enough public investment. Now we need to have more models of private sector involvement, whether it is in public infrastructure or in other sectors. So I love to see triple B working. It worked very well with dry ports. They now, one in 6th of October, it's now ready to operate, went very well. It's 100% triple B. And there's another one in Asham Ramadan, it will be awarded to triple B. I also awarded close to 40 schools to triple B. And I hope with the adjustment to triple B law will attract more and facilitate that this process will be successful. I believe there was a problem with the current law because it did not encourage triple B to be a successful story. So hopefully with the adjustment we are made to the law, it will give us a chance to have more triple B investment.
Minister, thank you. We're running tight on time, and I think we can probably manage a couple more questions. I've got one come up on the screen which echoes a question which came up earlier, but I'll take one more from the. I was like, the two of you sitting together, you wouldn't like to share the question, would you? It wouldn't be the same question.
No.
So there we are.
Okay. I was going to ask Dr. Mohammed Ayub.
And you are?
Mohammed Ayub. I'm actually an accountant, but I work in the energy sector, particularly renewable energy. I was keen to know about the informal economy, which you talked about it earlier, which is about 50% of the total economy, and the new law. How that going to manage and the digitization you are actually performing at the moment in order to for a company like the one I'm working with. It's a small company, it's SME, and how that will work in Egypt with the informal sector, as I put it. What's the plan from the ministry side of actually encouraging the informal? Because I'm going to deal with them on an electronic way. So how you can encourage some of us here who might go to the SMEs and invest in Egypt or work with companies from Britain, basically.
Thank you.
Three main very quick points. Number one, the new law for the SMEs, which gives them a lot of advantages: tax, customs, financing, one license for everything, and all of that. Hopefully this will help them because we are telling them, look, no tax system will be applied to you, just a flat rate according to your volume of business. For example, if your business 250,000 per year, just 1,000 Egyptian pound per year is a tax. If 1 million, you pay just 5,000 per year, and that's it. No tax man will knock the door on you, and everything will be one license for everything. Hopefully, this will help. The second one is automation. I believe the significant digitalization and automation going on in the country will ensure that we will catch many of the informal. Number three, the government, I'm a member of the government. We need to work seriously to convince our informal sector that we will not take them and put them in prison because they didn't pay taxes, they didn't pay customs, they blah, blah, blah. And we don't need to send our inspectors every day. We send 10 to knock the door. Oh, where is your license for tax? Where is your license for insurance? Where is your license for blah, 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 blah? So they hate that. They say, decide to be informed. No, we need to change that. We need to say, no one will come to you, just one license, and that's it. And we will trust you unless otherwise. So, what's the timeline? We started. The law is now in force. Executive regulation issued some few weeks ago. The automation started, and we have to reduce the bureaucracy and move in a very disciplined way. And this we need also to change the culture of dealing with our economy.
Okay. I hope there's a quick question. I'm sorry, we're going to take this, the gentleman here who has the microphone. Quick question, I hope.
Right. Hassan Afifi, Armira Capital. I just have, with the FDIs that have dropped in the oil sector, is there any fiscal incentive that the government is going to have for oil companies, especially foreign? And just a very short question about debt. What's the plan for the rest of 2021 and for 2022 in terms of foreign issuance of bonds?
For the first one, the reduction in FDIs to the oil sector was because of COVID-19. One word. I don't believe that there is any problem with the tax regime currently for treatment for the oil companies or something. They did not report to us that they are facing any problem. If there is, we deal with that. Number two, we have already issued 3 weeks ago, and I don't believe that the current calendar year will have any more. We will have to wait and see the 2022 calendar year, how it will be, and decide accordingly. But we have a plan to issue green bond again. We have a plan to issue sustainable SDGs bonds, and we are talking with many investment banks. And we have a plan to go for Sukuk, and we love to see it green Sukuk if it is possible. So these three is a matter of diversification. I concentrate on them. So if I succeed to go for green bond again, even for $500 million, even low, I would love to do it. I also love to go for green SDGs bond. It will be the first time and first country in Africa. I love to be the first. So if I can do it, I will be happy, because I always proud to say I was the first. So I love to see Egypt to be first issuing SDGs. I'm in talk with many banks to do. And also Sukuk. Egypt has issued the Sukuk law. Now we are working with some international and local lawyers to help us to draft the executive regulation for the Sukuk law. If I can succeed to do that, I love to see Egypt going to the Sukuk market before 30th of June. If I can do this year, it will be good for me. Thank you.
Okay. On the ones that are written, is that also the answer to, with the current account deficit widening, how are you going to deal with it? Is that the same answer?
Let me say that they are talking about financing, the gap, the financing gap. And look, we have to wait a little bit to decide on how we're going to address that, because of the uncertainty surrounding everything now. Again, we have to, my personal experience, always there are some period in the year which are seasonal to see some, fluctuation.
Yeah.
So you cannot decide in such an environment what you're gonna do exactly, other than you use your contingency plans, because we know that markets in the up and downs, we know that we sometimes under pressure, and we have to bring the contingency plans once we are under that. This is what we did 2018, 2020, and but I think that once the market and situation become clearer, we will decide on that. However, as I said, for my plan to go to the international markets, there is nothing until 31st of December. If we see will be in the first half of the calendar year 2022, and I love to see it in this way, and hopefully, one point which I like to mention that with climate change.
Yeah.
And Egypt, yes, we will be in Glasgow beginning of November, because Egypt will be the host, the country hosting COP27, so I will be there. And Egypt is doing very well with that. We have a lot of plans for whether on the financing side or on the projects. We have BIMBAN. It's a model, the biggest solar electricity generator in the world. This is renewables. We have the wind field in Ain Sokhna, also one of the, and we have many projects for climate change, and we have the strategy. We have the national committee, and we drafted our strategy to address that. Even on the financing side, we have the strategy. And as I said, we started with a green bond, with SDGs. Now we are working with many banks to get the first green loan for around $2 billion. And we are roughly closing this loan with, and also, as I said, the SDGs bonds. So we are trying to move to green financing with green projects, which we are working with that. Our proposal will be in Glasgow for the hosting the COP27 with all the elements. I didn't want to go deeply with this issue. Thank you.
No, Minister, thank you so much. Look, I'm sure on behalf of everyone here and everyone who is on the webinar, you have given us a comprehensive discussion. You've allowed us in the questions to ask you the difficult questions. You've been very clear. You've been very open. I mean, this has been possibly, forgive me, but one of the best of these sorts of webinars or anything that we've been able to do. So I think my last question would, will you come back in a year's time and give us an update, please?
If I'm still Minister of Finance, yes. But let me say something I have to mention, because I had yesterday we finished meetings with annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank. So over the week, we were meeting investors, including investment bankers and other banks. So Standard Charter, which already have been awarded license to open in Egypt. So I had a meeting with them, virtual meeting. So they said to me, we got the license, we're coming to Egypt. I said to them, look, very quickly, very, very quickly. You know why? Because 103 million Egyptians know you very well. So once you are in Egypt, you will be the biggest. She said, how? I said, your name is Muhammad Salah t-shirt. Don't forget that. So the 103 million Egyptians read it not every day, every moment, because they look at so what I'm trying to say is that Egypt market is open. And I personally was happy that Standard Charter was awarded the license to open branches in Egypt and to contribute to the Egyptian economy and create more jobs for Egypt. So just wanted to make this point.
And forgive me, Minister, but thank you also for getting this far before mentioning Mohammed Salah. So he had to come up at some point. So.
I got it because Standard Charter, I said, look, you will be the famous bank in Egypt quickly. So
there we are. No, I think we should all just say thank you to the Minister for a great presentation and your presence here today. So,
thank you,
Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.